Welcome to the Nightlife Podcast, where we discuss all things having to do with Knights of Pythias.
Hey, we're back here on the Nightlife Podcast, and we have Barbara Bosher with us, and she is a Pythian sister, and we're going to be getting to know her and about her journey into Pythian sisters and her thoughts on the order, and we're going to be doing lots of learning. And this is an episode that me and Dylan both have been really excited about to just get more information, because we currently in Missouri do not have any Pythian sister temples, so that's something that we're trying to work on. Anyway, Barbara, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us how you got into Pythian sisters.
So I'm Barbara Bosher. I've been with the Pythians now for about 20-ish years, I think.
Wow.
And I came in because my husband was a knight before I was a sister, and I had to come down to the functions, and the sisters were like, "Oh, you should come join us." And I said, "Well, no." But, we like to do nope, sorry, not interested. And it probably took about 6 months of them trying to convince me to come in before I did so.
Wow.
That's awesome. And so, what domain or jurisdiction do you reside in?
I'm in Maryland.
In Maryland. Okay. That's awesome. Dylan's wife was a member of the Knights of Pythias. Says there's not a Pythian sisters. She was a member of the Knights of Pythias. Are you a member of the Knights of Pythias, or just the Pythian
Just the sisters.
Gotcha. That's something that we have a few ladies in our lodge, and and we actually have a lady that's going to be joining our lodge. And I think as time goes on, if these ladies keep joining, I think eventually we'll maybe want to start a Pythian Sisters temple, connected to our lodge. And I think that would be really cool. I think a lot of us probably have the question of what are the ritual differences between the Pythian Sisters and the Knights of Pythias. But I'm not asking you to make the comparison because you're not a Knight of Pythias, but can you kind of give us kind of an overview without giving away any, of the secret work? Can you give us kind of an overview of the ritual and how you like it, and your thoughts on the ritual?
The rituals, when performed the proper way and with a larger group of people, ends up being very beautiful. From the induction to the end and the yearly renewals, basically. It's very beautiful. The
Gotcha.
words, although old, hold so much value. And I feel like if more people were a part of that, maybe the world might be a better place. I know that seems kind of hokey, but one would hope that.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way about the Knights of Pythias. Dylan, you have a question?
Yeah, what you just said there, that the world would be a better place. You've probably heard a similar sentiment by Justice Rathbone when he said, "If fraternal love held all men bound, how beautiful the world would be." And I even think, even at the time, he was using the word men in the categorical sense of mankind. So I guess I would ask, what exactly is the mood of the ritual? I would say that for Knights of Pythias, there's a mood of, it's a controlled environment, it's a secured environment, here's some obligations, here's some principles by which we expect you to live your life, that kind of thing. Is that sort of similar to how Pythian Sisters has their ceremonies?
I would say so. I mean, and really when you look at the history of it, the Knights of Pythias were founded first, right? And later on came the Pythian sisters. So obviously we had to base our ritual work and other things based on what the men brought forth first. So I think there's a lot of intersection there. Um, but of course, as women do, we make it more flowery
Hmm.
and more feminine,
Hmm.
in nature. Um, and I think we lose that a lot in today's society because everybody is trying to be so politically correct
Hmm.
and not step on people's toes. And I
Yeah.
think a part of being a part of an organization like this, there's no stepping on toes. This is just being people
Hmm.
and allowing ourselves to be unapologetically a woman or a man, because a man can also become a part of the sisters,
Hmm.
right? But just allowing us to be ourselves and loving on each other and loving the space that we're in and knowing that we're safe within that space. And if we're not, then we know that there are steps that can be taken to go, you're not holding up to these values. Sorry, you gotta go.
I love
That
that.
is really good. That's even inspiring to me.
Yeah,
Uh,
same.
I would, it's inspiring and I would aspire to upholding that because that is what you said there, being people and being your best self and that kind of thing, however that has manifested. I do think that that's an ideal that is Pythian in general, because I do feel that in Knights of Pythias as well. And it's so cool now that you can join Knights of Pythias regardless whether you're a man or a woman. You can join Pythian Sisters regardless. I think that's really neat. And
Yeah.
I would even say that that's kind of like a microcosm of the progressiveness of our order, throwing away any socio-political baggage that progressiveness has attached to it. It's it's sort of that constant improvement idea that we have our core principles, those never change, but we apply them in greater and greater ways. So that sounds really amazing. I do like
Yeah.
that.
Well, and I have found in other organizations that I'm in where it is co-ed, as men, sometimes we tend to, if we disagree with each other, we can kind of puff our chests up a little bit and say, no, it's going to be this or that way. But it's funny to me in the co-ed organizations, if a woman speaks, all the men are like, okay, that's what we're going to do. and, and it's like, she has, the women seem to kind of pull a little bit more weight or power than sometimes than the men. So, that's been my experience within other co-ed organizations.
I mean, in reality, you know, um, for example, we just had to sell our lodge because it was too big.
Oh wow.
Gotcha.
Um, Unfortunately, so we're looking for something smaller now. Um, but it was interesting because when I was talking to my husband, they were talking about the sale. I can't go into all the depth of that, but um, he said, we realize as men how much weight the women were carrying and getting money to come into the lodge
Yeah.
and supporting, because we did bingo for more than 40 years, right? um, how we how we kept that going week after week after week, even when the numbers lessened, even when COVID hit, even
Hmm.
we were still there trying to carry that through. um, and so, yeah, men may not admit it right away, but really, you know, behind, what's the old saying? Behind every man is a really good woman, right?
There you go.
So
Yep.
in this case, it's still the same. Um,
100%.
and so we
Um,
bring a lot to the table.
when you joined the Pythian Sisters, were most of the ladies older, or were there some younger ones also, or what was kind of the demographic when you joined? And what is it
When
now?
I
Is it
joined
changed or is it the same? Or
Mm.
in our particular temple, it's always been older. I am the youngest. I know usually ladies don't tell their age, but I'm the youngest at 47. And then there's another temple there that has a couple of women who are actually younger than I am, which is
Oh, wow.
amazing in itself.
Yeah.
But it's not something that you see very often because so many people are into um, themselves. You know, what's in
Mm.
it for me?
Yeah.
If they want to participate in life, it's how can I get out there onto social media and present what I think and not team up with anybody else to do that. Because if I team up with somebody else, then it takes away from whatever. But in reality, joining together would give so much more to society than being on one's own. You
Mhm.
know, it's almost like looking at family and the way the families are developed nowadays. Like, oh yeah, you're 18, bye, see ya, get
Yeah.
out of my house, right? Whereas we're like, oh great, you're 16, come join the sisters, and you grab onto a whole new family, and
Yeah.
we want to keep you
Yeah.
here forever. It's
Yeah.
it's a totally different mindset.
That's what I've been. That's what kind of happened to me. My fraternalism. I mean, as a young boy, I was involved in Boy Scouts and Order of the Arrow. But after I graduated high school, I was sitting on the porch with my grandpa, and he was a Freemason. And I just kind of asked him about it, and he goes, "Oh, well, here's your application. We're gonna get to the lodge right away." And and so I was barely 19 years old joining, and then it turned out to be kind of an addiction, and I joined this and joined that.
There are worse
but
addictions, I'm sure.
but I do have to say, when talking to people, who were, I mean, even some of the guys in our lodge, talking to them, their dads were Pythians, their moms were part of the Pythian sisters, things like that, and they brought their kids to the functions, and that just kind of died out, and they made it less of a family thing. And I think that's something that, me and Dylan, like I said earlier, we both have daughters, and we just had a big Pythian camp out, and we had all our families there. We had, my daughters are quite a bit younger than Dylan's, but the daughters all played together, and it was nice to be able to be gathered as Pythians but with our families. And I loved that
Mhm.
experience, and I think that's what needs to be happening more. All the ladies who have granddaughters that are 16, they need to be saying, or whatever age, they need to be saying, "Hey, you're coming with me to the temple this evening. I want you to meet some other great ladies who could be great friends."
Join the
So
original social network.
yeah, exactly.
But that
Um,
really starts from youth, like you were saying. And you really look at the history, yeah, there's been the Girl Scouts, there's been the Boy Scouts. But did you know that the Knights of Pythias actually had their own version of the Boy Scouts? I can't remember the name of it. And the women actually had their version.
yeah,
So it
um,
really started off as a young age
yeah,
and growing up in it.
exactly,
The
yeah,
the woman who is going into um, become the head of all of the Pythian sisters, right? She and her twin sister were actually part of the Pythian culture because their parents were.
Mm.
gotcha,
And they actually started, I think they were 12 or 13 at the time when they
gotcha. And that would have
started
been the
working the
Sunshine
bingo.
Girls. Gotcha.
Even before right, I mean, there were the Sunshine Girls, but no, even
Okay.
before they weren't a part of the Sunshine Girls, but they started
Oh, okay.
coming down and volunteering and whatever have you at a young age.
Mhm.
So they have been around for a very, very long time and seen a lot of the difficult changes that have been coming down the pike too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, like you mentioned, it just has become kind of something that has faded a little bit, and I think that's one of the reasons we're doing the podcast. We're trying to get people to hear and see that, young people are still involved. it can be growing. We just got to get out there. If you know someone who, if you've got a friend who has the same type of ideals, I mean, you need to be inviting them to an activity. And that's what me and Dylan have done. I mean, Dylan's actually started a Pythian lodge in his town. He's been a huge example of the hard work it takes, but Pythianism is still growing, but still thriving. And we just have to share that somehow. And that's kind of one of the reasons we started the podcast, was to give a voice to Pythianism in a modern world. The other thing I was going to ask you really fast, I know Dylan's got some more questions, but one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, have you taken upon any leadership positions within the temple, or even higher at the state level, or the grand, or how that works with the sisters?
I was actually the highest role I've ever played was actually as the grand. Poobah is the only word that comes to mind, and I know that's not the word I want.
Grand Poobah. That's with the P-A-H, right?
Right, right. Uh, but no, I was actually head of state, and I
Gotcha.
did it twice in a row because of the fact that COVID happened and we couldn't get
Uh,
together and do
Gotcha.
our usual um, turnover. So I actually did
Gotcha.
that for 2 years.
That's
so
awesome.
you probably have a good finger on the pulse of how the temples in your area kind of similarities and differences. Can you tell me about like the atmosphere as somebody who's I've barely even met anyone who's been in Pythian Sisters before, so this is a good question for me to ask you. What is it like? What kind of atmosphere would somebody who's joining Pythian Sisters find in their local temple?
A lot of love, a lot of understanding. Um, we all just really want to belong and create long-lasting friendships. And I think the other key piece is that we just don't want to see anything like this die. We all want to see it grow and thrive again and have pictures like they used to, where they'd have 100 and more people at a gathering, right?
Yeah.
And not just to meet every other year um, for the national level, right?
Mm,
But just within the temples themselves, in the lodges themselves.
Yeah.
having a sort of on the ground local support group community, pick your term. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Love and understanding. I don't know anybody who could oppose that kind of atmosphere.
Yeah.
So, in an ideal temple, you mentioned, and I'm so sorry that you lost your meeting space, your lodge building, because it was too big. And you say you're in the process of finding a new space?
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
In an ideal situation, you have your own meeting space and you have enough people to fulfill all roles. What would like the ideal temple? How would that operate? What would that look like?
What would it look like? Every chair filled, and
Mm,
then having overflow. When I first started, it wasn't just every role filled, but we had excess of people, so people didn't have to take on multiple roles.
hmm
Oh, that's
Um,
wonderful.
and when you have the extra people, then again, the beauty that the rituals really comes out,
Yeah.
because then you can really see what it's supposed to be like.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And that was kind of, I guess, a question I had too, is what does one of your normal meetings look like? What does a normal meeting for you guys consist of?
At this point, um, it's done by Zoom,
Mm,
Okay,
so
gotcha.
you don't you don't get you feel obligated to go because you made that commitment. But there's no um, how do I want to put this? There's no gathering afterwards.
Mm.
It used
Gotcha.
to be before that you went to your meeting, and we happen to have a bar downstairs. So, we'd bring food, we'd order food or whatever have you, and, we'll have water or soda or Gatorade or, if somebody wanted to have an adult beverage, then they could, right?
Sarsaparilla.
God forbid.
I don't know who's going to see this. I don't want to put anything out there
Exactly.
that might ruffle somebody else's feathers. Um, but we used to have that, and then we would play, some cards or something else like that. And so you got the fraternization there. You had the family building, you know, and
Yeah.
then like once a month or once every other month, we would have um, some sort of potluck or something to get everybody together. During the summers, we'd buy a pig and we would do a pig roast. You
Oh
know,
wow.
um,
That'd be cool.
so I miss those days because I miss the
Yeah.
camaraderie. That's the word I want. Is camaraderie. You don't
Mm.
get that through Zoom. You get the hey,
Yeah.
how you doing? Everybody okay? Like my father-in-law just passed, and everybody was there for me. But again, it was like through Zoom, and it
Mm.
wasn't the whole let us come and be with you. Like when my mother died, she was a sister. So during her memorial service, we did a Pythian service. And it was beautiful. It made me cry. Couldn't talk through it at all. But, somehow or another we got through it anyway. But there's a difference. It's just that level of difference. It just seems almost there's that wall of separation. And I
Yeah.
miss
Yeah.
that in-person communication.
Because you watch TV shows on a screen, you watch movies on a screen, you read emails on a screen, you see the news, all that. But then to have a fraternal organization also on a screen, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Do you guys kind of have plans or an expectation here soon to be able to meet in person again, even if it's for um, just like a picnic or something like that?
We're trying. We're trying to get a dinner together so we can at least go in, pay for yourself sort of thing, but at least we can all
Yeah.
be together. So
Mm.
we're
That's awesome.
working on it. It's difficult, with kids.
Oh yeah.
I was supposed to go by the restaurant to pick up my new shirt that was ordered. But unfortunately our water heater broke, and so my husband had to go between here and Home Depot with the plumber to figure everything out, and so I had to take care of the kids. That's the only way
Yep.
I could communicate was via Zoom. But
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Zoom is great because when kids are sick, I can still be there and participate, but it's still not the same.
Yeah.
So
Yep. No, I get that. Dylan and we've talked about before. What is it going to look like when? Because so Dylan drives quite a bit to come to. Dylan, you drive what 2 hours to come
Yeah.
to our Pythian meetings,
Yeah. 2 hours
and
up, 2 hours back.
yeah, and so we have talked about we try to have a Facebook chat with the brothers and the sisters on there, or the sisters who are Knights of Pythias, and we try to have regular conversations about Pythianism and the lodge and things like that, so that because we only meet once a month, and so we try to keep that camaraderie up. We try to keep the conversation up. We try to keep the Pythianism flowing as much as we can throughout our everyday lives, and that's I know for me, I'm gonna go on a limb and say for Dylan too, it's kind of an integral part of our life. Our Pythian friendships and things like that, they're an integral part of our almost everyday life.
Yep.
um, But well, that's wonderful, and I really do hope that you guys are able to meet together and find a new lodge, a new temple, and get that camaraderie going again. Dylan, do you have any more questions before I ask the final question?
That sounds ominous. I don't know. Yeah, I have a question. What's the final question?
That's
Well,
what I
the
was going to
question.
ask, Dylan. That you took the words right out of my mouth.
So, Barbara, what is the future of the Pythian sisters, and what do you think that they could be doing more or better, or continue doing, or stop doing? What is your take on the future of the Pythian sisters?
And that was actually my last question as well. So
I really don't know. Uh,
that's fair.
I see so many of us that are here that are older, and there's not enough new young blood coming in.
Yeah,
I think that so many people see these organizations as, I hate to put it this way, as old people, that they tend to shy away. But I think that either as the men or the women, right? If we could work it out where we could go to, let's say, school functions, right? Just like fraternities go to, or sororities go to, like an open campus sort of thing to do the same thing. Since we're able to do stuff, as sisters at the age of 16, you know, I would, I don't want to say we want to go camp out at the high schools, but, you know, talk to the moms, the dads, tell them, hey, we're not just drinking kind of like place. We're not just for bingo. We're not, we're really about giving back to society. And
Mm.
it's
yeah,
not just a matter of raising money through a GoFundMe, but we're really there for each other.
yeah.
You
I
know,
think that's what I love about Pythianism is it's such a deep um, friendship and brotherhood and sisterhood, and I think that it's that's what's I don't know of anyone I've ever met my entire life who wouldn't love a very best friend of some kind. And I feel like that's what you can get through fraternalism and specifically Pythianism.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. Um, for me, Pythianism is sort of like a structured, organized friendship in a way, which sounds kind of cold and administrative. I've found that getting rid of the administrative faff, the foofara of, okay, well, we have to organize this and fill out the reports and all of that. That's my least favorite part, especially anymore, I kind of like that tangible reality and kind of like you're saying, we're not asking folks, hey, you want to play bingo? Because we're all about bingo. And you're not asking, any number of activities. And when you say giving back, I resonate with that. And I also kind of think we're giving back to society by being society. Like this is what society looks like. This is how society is supposed to function. And having an idea like that's kind of the gist I'm getting from what you're saying. If that's accurate to your point.
everybody has to learn how to work together. We're so fractured as a society that we've forgotten that integral part.
Yeah,
Whether you're Republican or Democrat or whatever, it doesn't matter when you walk in here, you know?
Mm,
yeah,
And you can feel comfortable enough having an argument with somebody and go, yeah, okay, whatever. Here's the beer. Let's just get over it and, keep on
hmm.
going.
A root beer.
Okay. Root beer or an adult beverage. We'll just say adult beverage because,
There you
beer's
go.
going out there
Th-
anyway.
There's
that's
the good
funny.
catch-all.
Yeah, no, and
Or,
I
yeah,
I
whatever. So,
I do like that, And I love to hear from the woman side of things because, like I said, I really do feel like the women have this ability to see things in a different light that men just can't see. And they also have the ability to kind of, like you said, make things flowery and pretty and beautiful. And men sometimes can make things seem just business. And I feel like a lot of times the women can take things and make it meaningful just because of their natural ability to do that somehow. And so that I've told Dylan that, I said, if we ever get to the point where we have more ladies involved, I do think it would be smart for us to have a Pythian Sisters Temple attached to our lodge because, I think it could do a lot of good for our order as a whole. And with the wives being involved and things like that, and I have daughters, and Dylan has daughters, and so I think it could be a really good thing. So Barbara, I really appreciate your time today and talking with us about the Pythian sisters. It's been a pleasure to meet you, and like I said, we hope to have more ladies on here about the Pythian sisters and trying to grow both sides of the order and get both sides invigorated about Pythianism. Is there anything that you want to leave us with, Barbara? Any last words that you want to say?
I think even if it came down to where the men and the women had to combine, we just had to keep working to put the love out there in the world.
Yeah.
And to grow it together. Taking traditions from both sides and bringing them together. Bringing the softness. That's really what it comes down to, right?
Yeah.
You have all the strict administration stuff, which women have too. Believe me, I hate the reports that you have to fill out.
Me too.
But marrying the two and making sure that we don't lose each other, because I think that's when you look at a lot of these organizations that are bringing together the men and the women, the lines get so blurred that we kind of lose the focus of really what we're about and what we need to take care of.
Yeah.
So
That's very true. And I do not want to be the one with the last word, but I have to say this before we get off. It's been talking with you today. It's been great. Thank you so much. But it's almost been an epiphany. I'm kind of seeing some things in a slightly different light than I expected. I think a big lesson to me from our conversation today is that one of the first things you mentioned early on was that the Knights of Pythias organization realized sort of after the fact how much the Pythian sisters and the women in general involved with the lodge were doing. They didn't quite recognize how much of a task, a shared, shouldering the wheel sort of a thing, that was an entire side of things that they weren't even really thinking about. And the epiphany there is I've been a desk officer. I've mostly been a desk officer in my time as a Knight of Pythias, and I have recognized that people don't really quite realize we have to get this information in for the annual report. We have to get organized for this upcoming event. And if you're not doing that, you're not going to notice it. And what I wanted was for other people, when I send the email, respond to the email, right? And there was no animosity there. It's just that would be preferable. My lesson here is I want to know much more about Pythian sisters and how they do things and not say, okay, that's their job. I want to have more than an appreciation. I want to have that ability. I want to make things flowery. I want to make things softer and kinder and better. Yeah. Because looking through the old ritual like Pythian knighthood and Jewels of Pythian knighthood is mostly poetry and beautiful works of art. We so need beautiful works of art. We need jewelry. We need poetry. We need culture. So I'm thank you for bringing all of this up today, and I'm looking forward to incorporating more of what you've been talking about in the Knights of Pythias and within Pythianism in general.
Barbara, you've been a delight to have on our podcast. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anytime.
Yes, thank you.